The blue-green lights of the Zarthai Command Center pulsed gently as Commander Lurzak moved his four limbs across the floating control panels. His skin, a pale lavender shade, reflected the soft glow of the screens surrounding him. The detection systems had just picked up an unknown vessel entering the outer boundary of their territory. "Unknown ship detected in Sector 7, announced the sensor operator, her voice calm and measured. "Configuration does not match any known species in our database." Lurzak tilted his oval head slightly. "Full scan. I want to know what we're dealing with." Science Officer Vexnar nodded, her six-fingered hands dancing across the scan controls. "Initiating deep scan now, Commander." The main screen filled with data as the Zarthai sensors probed the approaching vessel. Images formed, showing a sleek, angular ship with visible weapon ports and engine systems, unlike any the Zarthai had encountered before. "The vessel identifies itself as the U.S. Defiant," Vexnar reported. "It appears to be a warship, though they're broadcasting peaceful intentions on standard frequencies." "Humans," whispered one of the junior officers. "We've intercepted their broadcasts for years, but never made direct contact." Lurzak considered this information carefully. The Zarthai Confederation, a peaceful alliance of 7 advanced species, had been monitoring Earth's transmissions for decades. They found humans fascinating but potentially dangerous, with their rapid technological advancement and their history of internal conflicts. "Open communications," Lurzak ordered. "Let's see what brings a human warship to our territory." The screen shifted to show the bridge of the human vessel. A man with short brown hair and a serious expression sat in the central chair. Unlike the Zarthai's smooth features, his face had sharp angles and small patches of hair above his eyes. "This is Captain Frank Collins of the U.S. Defiant," the human said. "We come on a diplomatic mission seeking peaceful contact with the Zarthai Confederation. We apologize for entering your space without prior permission, but we had no other way to make contact." Lurzak moved his upper limbs in the traditional greeting gesture. "I am Commander Lurzak of the Zarthai vessel Harmony. We welcome peaceful contact, Captain Collins. We have studied your broadcasts for some time and have been curious about your species." As they spoke, Vexnar continued her scans, her expression growing increasingly troubled. She moved away from her station and approached Lurzak, speaking quietly. "Commander, there's something strange about these humans. The scans show anomalies." "Explain," Lurzak said, keeping his attention on the human captain. "The readings aren't making sense. They're missing." Vexnar struggled to find the words. "They're missing something fundamental. I need to run more detailed analyses." On the screen, Collins smiled, unaware of the conversation. "We propose a meeting between our crews, Commander. A chance to learn about each other directly." Lurzak hesitated only briefly. "Agreed, Captain. We will prepare a reception area for your representatives, and perhaps some of my crew could visit your vessel as well." "Of course," Collins replied. "We'd be honored to host your people." After ending the transmission, Lurzak turned to Vexnar. "What exactly did your scan show? What is missing?" Vexnar's skin had paled to an almost white shade. "I don't know yet, Commander. But something is very wrong with these humans. They don't register correctly on our consciousness scanners. It's as if—" She paused, looking deeply troubled. "It's as if something essential is absent from their beings." "Continue your analysis," Lurzak ordered. "I want a full report before our representatives board their ship." As the Zarthai prepared for first contact, Vexnar returned to her station, running scan after scan on the human vessel. With each new reading, her concern deepened. Something about these humans was fundamentally wrong, and the thought of what might be missing from them filled her with a growing sense of dread. Lieutenant Amy Gordon stood by the airlock, straightening her uniform one last time. As the communications officer of the U.S. Defiant, she would be among the first humans to meet the Zarthai face to face. The airlock hissed open, revealing 3 alien visitors. Amy smiled and stepped forward. "Welcome aboard the Defiant. I'm Lieutenant Amy Gordon." The lead alien, Vexnar, moved forward with visible hesitation. Her large eyes studied Amy with an intensity that felt almost invasive. "Thank you for your welcome. I am Science Officer Vexnar." As Amy led the visitors through the ship toward the conference room, she noticed how the aliens kept a careful distance from the human crew members they passed. Vexnar carried a small device that she occasionally pointed discreetly toward different crew members. "Is that a translator?" Amy asked, nodding toward the device. Vexnar quickly lowered it. "Yes, among other functions. Your language is still new to us." In the conference room, Captain Collins greeted the visitors warmly, but Amy observed the aliens' strange behavior. They seemed increasingly uncomfortable, exchanging quick glances with each other when they thought no one was watching. Meanwhile, in the medical bay of the Defiant, Dr. Greg Patterson prepared to examine the first Zarthai visitors who had agreed to a basic health screening. The ship's doctor was eager to learn about alien physiology. "Your heart rate seems elevated," Dr. Patterson noted as he scanned the Zarthai medical officer with a handheld device. "Are you feeling anxious?" The alien's skin changed to a deeper purple. "Your scanning device, it is not comfortable." Dr. Patterson set it aside. "I'll use a different approach. I'm sorry for the discomfort." What he didn't mention was the strange readings he was getting. The Zarthai's bioelectric field was unlike anything he had seen before, pulsing with complex patterns that his instruments could barely measure. Back on the Zarthai vessel, Vexnar rushed to her laboratory after returning from the human ship. Her hands shook slightly as she downloaded the data from her scanning device. The readings confirmed her worst fears. "This cannot be correct," she whispered, running the analysis again. A junior science officer approached. "Have you identified the anomaly?" Vexnar looked up, her face drawn with concern. "Yes. The humans. They lack the soul light." The junior officer stepped back in shock. "That's impossible. No sentient being can exist without the soul light." "Yet they do," Vexnar said. "I've scanned 27 of them. Not one shows even a trace of the energy field we associate with consciousness." The soul light, as the Zarthai called it, was a complex quantum energy field that emanated from the brain of every sentient species they had ever encountered. It was considered the physical manifestation of consciousness itself, the bridge between physical matter and aware thought. "Could our scanners be malfunctioning?" the junior officer suggested hopefully. Vexnar shook her head. "I verified with 3 different devices. The humans are simply empty." She pulled up an image comparing a Zarthai brain scan with a human one. The Zarthai brain glowed with intricate patterns of energy that extended beyond the physical organ. The human brain showed only basic electrical activity, contained entirely within the skull. "They appear functional," Vexnar said. "They speak, reason, and behave as conscious beings. But according to everything we know about sentience, they cannot possibly be truly aware." "What will you tell Commander Lurzak?" Vexnar stared at the human brain scan. "The truth. That we are dealing with beings that appear sentient but lack what we consider the fundamental energy of consciousness. Either our understanding of awareness is flawed, or these humans are something entirely different from us, empty shells mimicking life." As Vexnar prepared her report, Lieutenant Andy Gordon noticed the growing tension during the diplomatic meetings. The aliens who had been cautiously friendly at first now seemed to be avoiding eye contact with the humans. Some refused to enter rooms where humans were present. Something had changed, and Amy couldn't shake the feeling that the Zarthai had discovered something about humans that deeply disturbed them. Lieutenant Commander Joe Martinez frowned as he led his security team through the corridor of the Defiant. The Zarthai delegation had suddenly canceled all scheduled meetings and requested immediate return to their ship. Something had spooked them. "Stand by at airlock 3, he ordered 2 of his officers. "Keep it professional, but stay alert." Captain Collins's voice came through his comm device. "Joe, escort our guests to the airlock yourself. I want to know what's going on." "Yes, sir," Martins replied. He found the 3 Zarthai visitors huddled together in the observation lounge. speaking rapidly in their own language. They fell silent when he entered. "I'm here to escort you back to your shuttle," Martine said with a polite smile. Vexnar, the science officer, moved away when he approached. "We appreciate your assistance, Lieutenant Commander." As they walked, Martins noticed how the aliens kept at least 5 feet of distance from him and any other human they passed. Their skin had taken on a pale, almost sickly color. "I hope our accommodations were satisfactory," Martins said, trying to make conversation. "Your vessel is impressive," Vexnar replied stiffly. Meanwhile, in engineering, Chief Engineer Diane Foster was running a routine check of the ship's systems when something unusual caught her attention. A small power drain was coming from Junction Box 47C, near the guest quarters. "That shouldn't be there," she muttered, opening the panel. Inside, she found a small device attached to the power relay. It was clearly not human technology, with an organic-looking shell and pulsing lights. "Foster to security," she called over her comm. "I found an alien device in our power system." Within minutes, similar devices were discovered throughout the ship, all strategically placed near sensitive areas. They appeared to be scanning equipment, collecting data about the Defiant and its crew. Back on the bridge, Captain Collins received the news with growing anger. He immediately contacted the Zarthai vessel. "Commander Lirzak, we've discovered scanning devices planted throughout our ship. This is a serious breach of trust during what was supposed to be a peaceful exchange." On screen, Lirzak's expression was hard to read, but his posture showed tension. "Captain Collins, I apologize for this misunderstanding. We have concerns that required additional information." "What concerns justify spying on us?" Collins demanded. There was a long pause before Lirzak answered. "Captain, our scans have detected something about your species that is deeply troubling to us. I would prefer to discuss this in person, if you would agree to meet on neutral ground." Collins glanced at his first officer, who nodded slightly. "I'll come to your ship with a small team. But I expect full transparency, Commander." "You shall have it," Lirzak promised, though his voice lacked conviction. An hour later, Collins, Martinez, Dr. Patterson, and Lieutenant Gordon sat across from Lirzak and Vexinar in a conference room aboard the Zarthai vessel. The tension was palpable. "Explain these concerns of yours," Collins said directly. Vexinar activated a holographic display showing 2 brain scans side by side. "This is a Zarthai brain," she said, pointing to the image surrounded by complex patterns of light. "And this is a human brain." The human brain image showed only the organ itself, with no surrounding energy field. "What am I looking at?" Collins asked. "What you're not looking at," Vexinar corrected. "Humans lack what we call the soul light, a quantum energy field that extends beyond the physical brain. This field is present in every sentient species we have ever encountered. It is what we consider the physical manifestation of consciousness itself." Dr. Patterson leaned forward. "Are you saying you don't believe we're conscious?" Lirzak's voice was grave. "According to everything we understand about awareness and sentience, you cannot be. Yet you behave as conscious beings. This contradiction is disturbing to my people." Martinez tensed. "Disturbing enough to spy on us." "You must understand," Vexinar said, her voice almost pleading. "To us, you appear as empty vessels, bodies that move and speak, but lack the essential energy that we associate with true life. We needed to understand how this could be possible." Collins's expression hardened. "So you've decided we're what? Machines? Sophisticated puppets?" "We don't know what you are," Lirzak said quietly. "And that uncertainty has created fear among my crew." News spread quickly through the Zarthai fleet. 7 large ships had now gathered near the U.S. Defiant, their crews both fascinated and disturbed by the humans. In the central command ship, the Zarthai Leadership Council debated the situation with growing concern. "These humans defy our understanding of consciousness," said Elder Truven, her voice echoing in the circular chamber. How can beings without soul light display such complex behaviors? Perhaps they are biological machines, suggested another council member, advanced enough to mimic awareness without truly possessing it. Commander Lurzak stood before them, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Whatever they are, they believe themselves to be conscious. They have built a civilization, created art, and developed advanced technology. We should approach this mystery with scientific curiosity, not fear. Science cannot explain what we are seeing, Elder Truvan replies sharply. This goes beyond physical understanding. Among the Zarthai, religious groups had begun to speak out. The priest-scientists who studied the soul light as the connection between physical bodies and the cosmic consciousness were particularly troubled. To them, humans represented something impossible, and therefore dangerous. Back on the Defiant, Dr. Patterson and science officer Linda Hayes worked tirelessly to understand what the aliens were detecting, or failing to detect, in humans. If this soul light is a quantum field, we should be able to measure it, Hayes said, adjusting sensors in the lab. We just need to calibrate our equipment to detect what they're seeing. Dr. Patterson nodded, studying the Zarthai brain scans they had been given. The field extends beyond their physical bodies. It's almost like an aura, but based on real energy patterns, not mysticism. Do you think we really don't have it? Hayes asked quietly. Could they be right about us? Patterson shook his head firmly. We're conscious. We know we are. Whatever they're detecting must be just one expression of consciousness, their version, not the only version. As they worked, tensions continued to build outside. 3 more Zarthai ships had arrived, taking positions that effectively surrounded the Defiant. Captain Collins called an emergency meeting of his senior officers. The situation is deteriorating, he told them grimly. The Zarthai religious factions are gaining influence. They're calling us empty ones and hollow walkers, beings that should not exist. Lieutenant Gordon, who had been monitoring Zarthai communications, nodded. Some of them believe we're an affront to their understanding of life itself. The most extreme voices are suggesting we need to be studied or contained. You mean dissected, Martinez said bluntly. Collins didn't contradict him. Our priority now is the safety of this ship and crew while we try to resolve this peacefully. Lieutenant Hayes, any progress on understanding this soul light? Some, sir, Hayes replied. It appears to be a complex quantum field that the Zarthai generate naturally. Our brains operate differently, electrochemical processes contained within our skulls rather than extended quantum fields. Before Collins could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Martinez checked his security console. Captain, we have an unauthorized shuttle approaching from the smallest Zarthai vessel. They're not responding to hails, and their approach vector suggests they're heading for Docking Bay 2. Red alert, Collins ordered. Security teams to Docking Bay 2. Non-lethal measures only. We don't want to escalate this further. Martinez rushed to lead the security response, arriving at the bay just as the alien shuttle forced its way through the outer door. When the shuttle opened, 6 Zarthai in what appeared to be ceremonial robes emerged, carrying unfamiliar devices. Halt and identify yourselves, Martinez called out, his team forming a defensive line with stun weapons ready. The lead Zarthai stepped forward. We are the seekers of truth. Your empty shells mock the universal order. We must understand how you simulate life without the divine spark. One of the aliens raised a device toward Lieutenant Steve Jackson, who stood at the front of the security line. A pulse of energy shot out, freezing him in place as the alien tried to drag him toward their shuttle. Martinez fired his stun weapon, dropping the attacker. Protect Jackson. Don't let them take him. The attack in Docking Bay 2 ended quickly. Martinez and his team subdued the Zarthai intruders without serious injury to either side. Lieutenant Jackson was shaken but unhurt. The captured aliens were placed in the brig under guard. Captain Collins immediately contacted Commander Lurzak. Your people just attempted to abduct one of my crew. This is an act of war. Lurzak's image on the screen showed genuine shock. "Captain, I assure you this was not authorized. The ship that launched the shuttle belongs to a fringe religious sect. They acted without council approval." "Control your people, Commander, or I will," Collins warned before ending the transmission. In the medical bay, Dr. Patterson ran tests on Lieutenant Jackson, looking for any effects from the strange device used on him. "How do you feel?" Patterson asked, studying the readings. "Weird," Jackson admitted. "Like something was trying to pull at me, but not physically. It's hard to explain." Patterson nodded. "The device appears to have been designed to interact with what they call the soul light. Since we don't have it, the effect was different than they expected." Meanwhile, in the science lab, Linda Hayes had made a breakthrough. A young Zarthai scientist named Mevril had secretly contacted her, offering help. Unlike most of his people, Mevril was fascinated rather than frightened by humans. "Your message said you have a theory about our differences," Hayes said when they met via secure channel. Mevril nodded eagerly. "I've been studying your brain scans. Your consciousness isn't missing. It's just operating according to different principles." Hayes leaned closer to the screen. "Explain." "All known sentient species in our records generate consciousness through quantum field interactions," Mevril explained, showing diagrams. "The soul light is the visible manifestation of these fields extending beyond the physical brain. And humans. Your consciousness appears to be entirely electrochemical, contained within your neural tissue instead of extending into quantum fields." Mevril's eyes shone with excitement. "You're not empty. You're just completely different." Hayes felt a wave of relief. "So we're still conscious beings, just operating on different principles." "Exactly. Think of it as different technologies achieving the same result. We use quantum fields. You use densely packed neural networks. Both create consciousness, just through different mechanisms." With this new understanding, Hayes hurried to share the findings with Captain Collins and Dr. Patterson. They gathered in the conference room to discuss the implications. "So we're not soul void after all," Collins said. "We just express consciousness differently. It's like comparing radio waves to fiber optics," Hayes explained. "Different technologies carrying the same information." Dr. Patterson added, "This explains why their scanning technology doesn't detect our consciousness. They're looking for quantum fields, but our awareness exists in electrochemical patterns." Collins nodded. "The question is, will this explanation satisfy the Zarthai? Can we convince them we're truly conscious beings?" "Mevril thinks we can," Hayes replied. "He suggests we create a translation matrix, a device that can convert our neural patterns into quantum fields they can detect. Like a consciousness translator," Patterson said, understanding immediately. "Exactly. It won't change how our minds work, but it will make our consciousness visible to them in terms they can understand." Collins considered this. "How quickly can you build it?" "With Mevril's help and the right materials, maybe a day or two." "Make it a priority," Collins ordered. "In the meantime, I'll continue diplomatic efforts with Commander Lurzak." As they left the meeting, the ship's sensors detected more Zarthai vessels arriving. The situation was growing more tense by the hour. In the brig, one of the captured Zarthai was speaking to the guard. "You don't understand what you are," he said. "Your emptiness is an abomination. Some of our people believe you must be cleansed from existence." The guard kept his expression neutral. "We exist. We think. We feel. That's enough for us." "Not for the purifiers," the prisoner replied. "They're gathering now. They won't allow empty vessels like you to continue mimicking true life." The situation grew worse over the next 12 hours. 3 Zarthai warships took up positions around the Defiant, their weapons systems active. These ships bore different markings than the others, symbols that Lieutenant Gordon identified as belonging to the Purifiers, a radical religious faction. On the bridge, Captain Collins watched the tactical display with growing concern. "Options, Commander Rogers." Commander Alan Rogers, the ship's tactical officer, studied the display. They've positioned themselves to cover all possible escape vectors. Standard containment formation. You don't seem worried, Collins noted. Rogers allowed himself a small smile. They're using textbook tactics, sir. But their textbook was written for opponents with quantum field consciousness like their own. They don't understand how we think. Meaning, they expect us to respond as they would, to focus on the threats they can see. But human tactical thinking is different. We look for what isn't obvious. Rogers pointed to a gap in their formation. They think that's covered by their sensor grid, but our shield harmonics can create a blind spot there. Collins nodded slowly. Prepare an escape plan, but hold for now. I want to try diplomacy one more time. In the science lab, Hayes and Meverill worked frantically on their consciousness translator. The young Zarthai had smuggled himself aboard the Defiant, risking punishment from his own people to help. The neural interface is ready, Hayes said, connecting delicate circuits to a headset. Will this really show them our consciousness? Meverill adjusted something in the device. In theory, yes. It will convert your neural electrical patterns into quantum field expressions they can detect. But I must warn you, the translation won't be perfect. Your consciousness may appear strange to them. Strange is better than non-existent, Hayes replied. Dr. Patterson entered the lab, looking concerned. The purifier ships have issued an ultimatum. They're demanding we surrender for examination, or they'll open fire. Hayes looked up from her work. We need more time. The translator isn't ready for testing. How much longer? Patterson asked. 2 hours, minimum, Meverill answered. And we'll need a volunteer to use it. I'll do it, Hayes said without hesitation. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Collins received a transmission from the lead purifier vessel. The Zarthai on screen wore elaborate robes marked with symbols of authority. I am High Seeker Dorvac. You will surrender your vessel for examination. The abomination of empty consciousness cannot be allowed to spread. Collins kept his voice level. We are not empty, High Seeker. Our consciousness exists in a different form than yours. We have evidence that. False consciousness is worse than none, Dorvac interrupted. You have 1 hour to surrender, or we will take action to cleanse this sector. After the transmission ended, Collins turned to Rogers. We're out of diplomatic options. Prepare defensive measures. Already done, sir, Rogers replied. And I've identified several weaknesses in their shield configuration. They're overconfident. Collins stood and straightened his uniform. All hands to battle stations. But remember, we defend ourselves, nothing more. These people are acting from misunderstanding, not malice. Throughout the ship, crew members moved with calm efficiency to their positions. Unlike the Zarthai, who saw them as empty shells, each human carried personal fears, hopes, and determination. The very emotions the aliens couldn't detect drove them to protect each other and their ship. In the science lab, Hayes sat in a chair as Meverill attached the translator device to her head. This will feel strange, he warned. Your consciousness will remain your own, but the device will create a quantum field expression of it. Will it hurt? Hayes asked, trying to hide her nervousness. No, but you may experience unusual sensations as your mind adjusts to having its processes made visible in a new way. Dr. Patterson checked her vital signs one more time. Linda, you don't have to do this. She smiled tightly. Yes, I do. If we can't convince them we're conscious beings, this ends in bloodshed. As Meverill activated the device, a soft blue glow began to form around Hayes's head. It pulsed and shifted with her thoughts, growing stronger by the second. It's working, Meverill whispered in awe. Your consciousness, it's beautiful. The 1-hour ultimatum from the purifier ships was nearly up. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Collins received an urgent message from Dr. Patterson. Captain, Hayes, and Meverill have completed the translator. It's working, but we need to get Hayes in front of Zarthai leaders for it to make a difference. Collins turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to Commander Lurzak's ship. The Zarthai commander appeared on screen, looking troubled. "Captain Collins, I cannot stop the Purifier ships. They no longer recognize Council authority in this matter. We've developed a way to show you our consciousness in terms your people can understand," Collins said quickly. "Request permission to bring one officer to your ship for demonstration." Lurzak hesitated. "The Purifiers will open fire if they detect a shuttle launch. Then we'll need to create a distraction," Collins replied, nodding to Commander Rogers. Rogers stepped forward. "Sir, recommend we activate defensive systems now. It will draw their attention long enough for a small shuttle to reach Commander Lurzak's vessel undetected." Collins gave the order. "Battle stations. Activate all defensive systems, but hold weapons fire unless fired upon." Throughout the Defiant, armored panels slid into place over vulnerable sections. Shield generators hummed to life, creating a shimmering barrier around the ship. Hidden weapon ports opened, revealing advanced armaments the Zarthai had not detected in their scans. On the Purifier ships, alarms sounded as their sensors registered the sudden transformation of what they had believed to be a modestly armed vessel into a formidable warship. High Seeker Dorvac stared at his tactical display in shock. "How could we miss these defenses?" "Scan again." His tactical officer worked frantically. "The human ship is generating interference. Our deep scans cannot penetrate. They're empty vessels. How can they anticipate our tactics?" Dorvac demanded. While the Purifiers scrambled to reassess the threat, a small shuttle quietly departed from the Defiant's rear launch bay, carrying Hayes, Mevril, and Dr. Patterson toward Lurzak's ship. Inside the shuttle, Hayes sat with the translator device attached to her head. The blue field around her had grown stronger, pulsing with complex patterns. "How are you feeling?" Patterson asked, monitoring her vital signs. "Strange but okay," she replied. "I can almost see my own thoughts." Mevril watched the field with fascination. "Your consciousness pattern is unlike anything I've studied. It's more concentrated, more intense than ours." The shuttle docked with Lurzak's ship. When the airlock opened, the waiting Zarthai stepped back in surprise at the sight of Hayes surrounded by the glowing field. Lurzak himself came forward, his large eyes wide. "This is unexpected." "This is Science Officer Linda Hayes," Patterson explained. "The field you see is generated by a translator device that converts her neural patterns into quantum expressions your people can detect." "This way," Lurzak said, leading them to a large chamber where several elder Zarthai waited, including some who had traveled from the Council ship. When Hayes entered, a murmur ran through the gathered aliens. The translator created a field that resembled their soul light, but with striking differences, more vibrant, more concentrated, with patterns that shifted more rapidly. "This cannot be," one elder said. "The empty ones should not have this." "We are not empty," Hayes said clearly. "Our consciousness exists in a different form than yours. This translator makes it visible to you, but it has always been there." Mevril stepped forward. "Honored ones, humans generate consciousness through dense electrochemical networks rather than quantum fields. Different method, same result: awareness, thought, emotion." Meanwhile, back at the standoff, the Purifier ships had recovered from their initial surprise and moved to attack positions. Their weapons powered up, targeting the Defiant. On the Defiant's bridge, Rogers watched calmly. "They're following standard attack protocol, just as expected. Evasive pattern Delta," Collins ordered. "Defensive fire only." The human ship moved with surprising speed, avoiding the first barrage from the Purifier vessels. Return fire from the Defiant was precisely targeted, disabling weapons systems without causing catastrophic damage. The Purifiers had never encountered such tactics. Their battle doctrine was based on overwhelming force against predictable responses, but the humans fought differently, adapting and improvising in ways the Zarthai quantum consciousness found difficult to anticipate. How do they fight like this without the collective awareness? A Purifier tactical officer asked in confusion as another attack run failed. High Seeker Dorvac had no answer. The empty ones were proving to be anything but empty. In the council chamber of the Zarthai flagship, Linda Hayes stood surrounded by the blue glow of her translated consciousness. The Zarthai elders moved closer, studying the patterns with growing wonder. "It is not the same as our soul light," Elder Truvan admitted, "but it is undeniably consciousness." Lurzak nodded. "The patterns are more concentrated, more intense than ours." Mevril had been taking readings with a small device. Human consciousness is compressed within their neural tissue rather than extended into quantum fields. It makes their thought patterns extremely dense and intense. An elder reached out a hand toward Hayes's field, but stopped short of touching it. "May I?" Hayes nodded. The elder's hand passed through the edge of her field, and he gasped. So much feeling, so many thoughts, all at once. "What do you mean?" Hayes asked. The elder seemed overwhelmed. "Your mind. It contains so many simultaneous processes. Our quantum consciousness spreads thoughts out, diffuses them. Yours concentrates everything into a small space. It's like comparing a star to a nebula." Dr. Patterson looked up from his medical scanner. "Her vital signs are elevated but stable. The translator is functioning perfectly." Just then, a Zarthai communications officer rushed in. "Elders, the purifier ships have engaged the human vessel." Lurzak moved to a display panel, showing the battle. The Defiant was moving with remarkable agility, evading most attacks while precisely targeting the purifier's weapon systems. "Their tactics are unexpected," one of the military advisors noted. "They don't follow any pattern we would predict." "That's because their consciousness works differently," Mevril explained excitedly. "Their compressed neural networks allow for faster decision-making and more creative problem-solving in some situations." Elder Truvan had been silent, but now she stepped forward. "We must stop this attack immediately. Send the signal to the purifier ships." "They won't listen," Lurzak warned. "They will when they see this," Truvan said, gesturing to Hayes. "Broadcast the image of her consciousness field to all ships." Minutes later, the battle paused as every screen on every Zarthai vessel showed Hayes standing in the council chamber, her human consciousness made visible by the translator. On the Lid purifier ship, High Seeker Dorvac stared at the image in disbelief. "How is this possible? They have no soul light." His science officer studied the readings carefully. "It's not soul light as we know it. It's something else, something we've never seen before." The Zarthai Council sent a unified message. The humans are not empty. They are not soulless. Their consciousness simply exists in a different form than ours. Dense, concentrated, and intense where ours is diffuse, extended, and harmonious. Across the Zarthai fleet, the revelation spread. The humans weren't missing something. They were different in a way no one had imagined possible. The purifier ships powered down their weapons. The battle was over. Back on the Defiant, Captain Collins received a transmission from Lurzak. "The crisis has passed, Captain. Your officer's demonstration has convinced even the most skeptical among us." "Glad to hear it," Collins replied with obvious relief. "Will there be lasting peace between us?" "Better than peace," Lurzak said. "Understanding. Your officer Hayes has agreed to work with Mevril on improving the translator technology. We have much to learn from each other." 2 days later, the Defiant prepared to continue its mission. A formal treaty had been signed between humans and the Zarthai Confederation. The translator technology would be developed further, allowing for better communication between the two forms of consciousness. In the observation lounge, Hayes stood with Mevril, watching the Zarthai ships. "I still don't understand why our different consciousness horrified your people so much," Hayes said. Mevril's expression was thoughtful. "Imagine discovering beings who breathe something other than air, or who see a completely different spectrum of light. It challenged our most basic assumptions about what consciousness is. And now we know that consciousness can take different forms. Yours is like a star, brilliant, concentrated, burning hot with thought and emotion. Ours is like a nebula, diffuse, extended, connecting with others. Hayes smiled. Different, but both beautiful in their own way. Exactly, Mevril agreed. Not better or worse, just different paths to the same miracle. Awareness.